You keep saying you're confused, but you're not confused. You just don't like the answer. You prayed about it, cried about it, thought about it over and over again. And deep down, you already know. You just wish the answer was different. You want clarity, but what you really want is confirmation. Confirmation that what you feel is right. Confirmation that what you want is allowed. Confirmation that what's comfortable, but God doesn't adjust truth to fit your preference. He reveals truth and waits for your obedience. And that's where the tension starts. Because the answer you heard costs something. It costs comfort. It costs control. So instead of accepting it, you start asking again. Not because you didn't hear him, but because you didn't like what he said. You keep asking God for the same question, hoping he'll change his answer. But God is not confused, and he's not going to contradict himself just to make you feel better. You say you're seeking clarity, but you're really stalling obedience because clarity requires action, and action requires surrender. So you stay in the loop, pray, wait, doubt, and repeat, not realizing you're not waiting on God. You're resisting him. If God told you what you wanted to hear, you wouldn't still be asking. That tension you feel, that's not confusion. That's clarity. You're trying to ignore. But the answer requires change. Letting go of that relationship, that habit, that environment. Letting go of who you've been and stepping into who you're called to be. But that transition, it's uncomfortable. So instead, you stay where it's familiar and call it waiting on God. Waiting feels spiritual. It sounds wise, but sometimes waiting is just fear in disguise. Fear of the unknown, fear of failing, fear of being wrong. So you delay and call it seeking. But you're not seeking. You've already found the answer. You're just negotiating with it. You don't need another sign. You don't need more opinions. You need obedience. Because God has already spoken through that conviction, through that uneasiness, through that feeling you can't shake, through that moment where you knew and you felt it, and for a second, you were ready to move. But then fear stepped in, and suddenly, you weren't so sure anymore. Not because God wasn't clear, but because obedience got real. Clarity is easy until it costs you something. That's when I don't know shows up. That's when I need more time shows up. That's when I'm still praying about it shows up. But be honest, how long have you been praying about it? At some point, it stops being patience. It starts being avoidance. Because delayed obedience is still disobedience. You're not stuck. You're at a decision point. And decisions require action. Once you move, you can't pretend you don't know anymore. So staying still feels safer, but it's not. Because every day you delay, you strengthen hesitation. You reinforce fear, and slowly, you drift further away. You're not confused, you're conflicted. Confusion means you don't know. Conflict means you know. But you don't want to accept it because God will give direction. but he won't force obedience. The longer you ignore the answers, the quieter the conviction feels. Not because God stopped speaking, but because you got used to ignoring him. And what once felt heavy starts to feel normal. You don't need a new word. You need to act on the last one. God is not going to give you step 2 if you're still ignoring step 1. So ask yourself, what did God already tell me that I haven't done? That's where your breakthrough is. In obedience, in movement, in surrender, even when it's uncomfortable. Because growth lives on the other side of obedience. You're not confused, you just don't like the answer. And the moment you accept it, everything changes. Stay motivated, spirits.